Not a deck that was on the radar going into that tournament.
Easy for me because he grew up in around he grew up in Michigan. I'm not sure if it's exactly Detroit or exactly what city he's from, but he's older than me. Coming into PTQs when I was coming up, Heezy was like kind of the end boss, or the person in the area that everybody knew. Then he's like the original grinder.
Yeah.
From the Midwest, at least for me in my Magic history. So to see him have so much success and come back, it's kind of pleasurable. He is here playing a blue-white flash deck. It looks to be it's very reminiscent of Matt Nass's deck from the Star City Invitational that he actually ended up taking 4th place with. Very Geist-centric, 4 unsummons, and you got your Sphinx's Revelations, your Feelings of Dread, Counter Magic, Restoration Angel, Snapcaster Mages, Hallowed Fountain as you see here. And he's going to be playing against Jason Black. Jason
Black is on your right. He's playing blue-white-red mid-range, which is actually, with the Matt Nass reference, very close to Max Tietz's deck that he played that we had in a feature match during that Invitational. It's basically the blue-white flash deck, splashing red for Thundermaw, Hellkite, Counterflux, Is a Charm, and some removal spells. So when we had this feature match on the Invitational, Matt Nass sort of very surgically tore apart what the blue-white red deck was up to. So interesting to see it. We'll see a replay of that.
We see Augur of Bolas here from Mark. It did reveal a Thought Scour to his hand. We see an attack here from one. A couple copies of Snapcaster Mage in his hand, along with an Unsummon right now. We'll see if he has a 3rd land, which looks to be the question here.
Jason Black with all of his colors here with a Hallowed Fountain and a Sulphur Falls.
We're going to see a Thought Scour here from Mark, targeting himself, hitting a Rune Chanter's Pike and a Sphinx's Revelation, drawing an island. So he will be able to make his land drop for the turn. You see him leaf through things here. One of those cards as well is an Azorius Charm, and he does just pass back to Jason. Now, as you brought up, Patrick, that match that Max and Matt Nass did play, it was pretty surgical and one-sided because the blue-white-red mid-range deck, it just doesn't have the same tools and doesn't fight the same way as the blue-white Geist deck does.
Yeah, the blue-white deck just seemed much more efficient in what it was trying to do.
As we are going to see a Geist of St. Trapped here. So this is probably, the swing card of the matchup. I would say probably the most important card here is that one for both sides.
Yes. It's very challenging to answer efficiently. Neither deck is... the decks have a lot of, pinpoint removal or bounce or tap effects, but not really a ton to just straight answer a Geist of St. Trapped.
As we're going to see Mark slide in a Snapcaster Mage here on the end step. Likely, hoping to trade with that Geist of St. Trapped is maybe the reason he did that, but he is also just going to play his own Geist to take care of Jason's. And now we're going to see an attack here for 3. So getting the beatdowns on.
Yeah, and Mark very aggressively firing off that Snapcaster Mage there.
That's kind of unusual to see, with Snapcaster Mage, obviously you're trying to get the most value you can extract from the card with the come into play ability, but on this instance, you see Mark just play it as basically an Ambush Viper, get a 2-1 in at the end step, take care of the Geist, and just start the beatdowns.
Yeah, I mean, his hand might be tempo-oriented enough that he just wants to get on the board instead of just trying to waste another turn, getting his Thought Scour flashback. We're going to see a main phase Restoration Angel here. Jason clearly concerned about the threat of counter spells in Mark's hand, so he's just going to main phase it.
But by doing that, he opens himself up to just an unsummon, and as you said, it's tempo right now.
And the blue-white deck, I believe, has to play an aggressive role in this matchup because they have so many unsummons, so many cards like Feeling of Dread, that he has to be on the front foot to maximize the power of those cards.
And speaking of Feeling of Dread, we do see Mark cast in another Augur of Bolas. Feeling of Dread, one of the cards that he can take, the other one being an Azorius Charm to go along with that island. So we'll see exactly what route he's going to choose to take here. Feeling of Dread, an interesting card right now, just in terms of Magic and what it does in this deck. I think it's at its best in this deck, where you could sometimes see that card. It wouldn't surprise me to see it in blue-white red mid-range, but it seems like it's just much more at home here in the blue-white Geist deck.
Yeah, you have a lot more ability to stay on the front foot. Also, the blue-white deck just doesn't have access to red removal spells, so it's another way of handling blockers or troublesome attackers.
As we do see Jason draws a Pillar of Flame for the turn. We do know that Jason has a Restoration Angel in his hand. Looks like he has another land there as well. Not quite sure about the rest of the contents, but right now, for him, Pillar of Flame, not a bad draw, being able to take care of that Snapcaster Mage, but he needs to catch up.
Yes. And the threat of Rune Chanter's Pike also looms over all this stuff too. He can't, even those Augurs are fairly anemic as attackers. The longer the game goes on, Jason's going to get nickel and dime by some of these attacks, and then Pike becomes lethal. So the incremental damage actually matters quite a bit, even though Mark's deck doesn't have burn in it.
as we do see that Pillar of Flame from Jason attempt to take out the Snapcaster Mage, but a second Unsummon from Mark puts it back to his hand, which is, obviously relatively good because now he can reuse that Unsummon again with a Snapcaster Mage. So Mark really just using tempo to his advantage right now, and his cheap effects just being very effective.
And Jason has a Detention Sphere in his hand, which I think he's going for here. I actually like this play quite a bit because he has a lot of action in his hand, so he should be putting a lot of weight on trying to stabilize the board, even though, the Augurs, again, are anemic. It's just the incremental damage actually adds up.
And, it's kind of weird to take down 2 Augurs with the Detention Sphere, because as Augur, it's just a 1/3.
Yeah.
What's the big deal? But as you said, there are situations when you have all spells, you just have to get the cards out of your hand, because you don't get extra points for having spells left over at the end of a game.
Right, and once Jason is aware that Mark has Feeling of Dread, then trying to take that Restoration Angel to block or trade, he knows that's a very dangerous proposition.
Yep.
Not only because of the Azorius Charm that could be there, but the Feeling of Dread he knows is there.
Yep.
So this is a much better avenue for Jason to stabilize the board.
We're going to see a Hallowed Fountain come into play here. Tap for Jason. He's just going to pass back. We do see a Pillar of Flame, a second one in his hand. We also do know about that Restoration Angel as well, and so does Mark, of course, as we're going to see a Snapcaster Mage here.
And I assume we are going to be Thought Scouring here.
Thought Scour is what we are going to see. Mark is going to target himself. We're going to see a Hallowed Fountain and a Plains go away, and something go to his hand. He hit it relatively well as he moves an island forward.
Yep.
To go along with a hand of Snapcaster Mage, Feeling of Dread, and Azorius Charm are the 4 cards in Mark's hand. So sitting pretty well right now.
Yeah, and Jason asked him to stop. He might be thinking about landing his Restoration Angel right now, which he does. The Matt Nass deck, I believe, played multiple copies of Dissipate, so Mark dropping down from 3 mana to 2 is a big deal in Jason's mind if he's worried about Dissipate.
And Mark has taken Matt's list, and he has, there are some variations here. Mark's deck list right now only does have 2 copies of Dissipate, so that is certainly something to be playing around, as you said.
So Mark is just going to pass the turn back. He has Snapcaster Unsummon and Azorius Charm, so he could have sent an attack there, but I believe he's better off just sitting and trying to use the second Snapcaster Mage to clear out some blockers and then actually use that to leverage some offense.
As we do see Jason come across here with Restoration Angel for 3, going to knock Mark down to 17. That's part of the power of this deck, of course, Patrick, is that, if you pass with the blue-white deck with all this mana open, it represents so many different things. It represents Azorius Charm, it represents Think Twice, it represents Dissipate, and it represents probably, arguably, the best card in the format, Sphinx's Revelation.
Yeah, it is. You're definitely... All right, so there's a Pillar, and now, yeah, this is going to probably get another Snapcaster Unsummon sequence from Mark, I believe. Yeah, but it's back in that experience of playing against fairies where they have all their mana up and there's a wide range of disparate effects that could occur.
And as the opponent, as Jason, you just have to think of, okay, what's worst case scenario? What's second worst case scenario? What exactly do I care about with him having all that mana up right now? So as we see the Pillar of Flame, Mark does make that same play, as you said, of unsummoning, Snapcastering, unsummoning a Snapcaster. And we're going to see a Snapcaster Mage here from Jason now.
Maybe the Snapcaster Pillar, I assume, is going to induce the Snapcaster and the other unsummon here again. Yep.
So Jason, to me, doing a really nice job of exhausting the Snapcaster Mages right now. Exhausting the utility that Mark has in his graveyard, as Mark does draw another Augur of Bolas.
Yeah, it's just using the Snapcaster. Mark has to use the Snapcasters basically to spin his wheels and keep them alive, which is way more efficient than him, getting to flashback cantrips or things to leverage his offense later on in the game. Additionally, it does a good job of mitigating Runechanter's Pike if Herberholz is able to find one of them, because his graveyard's now pretty drained.
As we see, the Augur of Bolas is going to give Mark a third unsummon for the game. Geist of St. Traft and a land moving to the bottom. So we see Mark's hand has 2 copies of Feeling of Dread and a Azorius Charm to go along with that unsummon and a mystery card. And we're going to see Mark come across here looking to trade Snapcaster Mages. And, really, and I think a reason for this attack, to kind of turn that Moorland Haunt on.
Yeah, I think that he's happy to trade off here because, these attackers are all pretty interchangeable, and he wants to get his Moorland Haunt going, so...
And that last card in Mark's hand, of course, is just that Snapcaster Mage from Unsummon, as we're going to see Azorius Charm here for Jason. Just use the cantrip mode, draw a card.
He just picked up a red card. I'm not sure if it was Searing Spear or another pillar. He looks like he has another pillar in his hand.
Could it be Big Daddy?
The Thundermaw
singleton copy of Thundermaw that Jason has?
Could be. I mean, we get Feeling of Dread and Azorius Charm a bunch of times. I think if it made his debut right now, but yes. Oh yeah, he does have the Thundermaw.
It does look like Big Papa is here. Thundermaw, Hellkite, considering making an appearance, and here we go.
And again, Jason is aware of Feeling of Dread in Mark's hand, so this Thundermaw it's a dodgy proposition to get going, but it's probably not going to get any better.
Yeah, I mean, maybe his thought here is just, I have to slog through these. I have to slog through this Feeling of Dread at some point, so I might as well try to get this part of the game over with.
And even if, from Jason's perspective, even if Mark, uses a Feeling of Dread here, that means that he can't make a Moreland Haunt token this turn.
Yeah.
So it ties up his mana in some fashion or another.
As you guys do see Thundermaw Hellkite on the screen. Took a little while for it to get here and see some success in the previous standard format, but it is here and here to stay. It's only getting better, especially with the new cards from Gatecrash.
Yeah, it was actually pretty silly to me that there was ever any question about whether or not this card was going to show up in tournament decks, but now with that out of the way.
Yeah, taking care of Lingering Souls is just one of the things that it does.
All right, so Mark is just going to unsummon the Thundermaw here, which will allow him to, and now Snapcaster unsummon. Okay, so instead of using the Moreland Haunt, Mark's going to try to get on the board as much as possible. I thought he was going to make a Moreland Haunt token there, which I was like, okay, that's fine, but the Thundermaw is going to come down next turn and blow it away. This is a much better sequence, because now his Feeling of Dreads are awesome.
Yeah, they're insane now, right?
Yeah.
As we do see Mark come across for 3. And this is basically what Mark tried to set up earlier in the game. He had like this sort of position earlier, and Jason kind of fought back a little bit with the Pillar of Flames, the Snapcaster Mage, and the Restoration Angel, but now Mark is exactly back where he wants to be, where Feeling of Dread and Unsummon and Azorius Charm are just bonkers now.
Yeah. No, and I think Mark's done a very good job in this game of identifying what route he needs to take and executing it. When you have a bunch of Feeling of Dreads and Unsummons in your deck, you have to push. You know what I mean?
He's always stayed aggressive this game. He's had to play defense very, very little. So we're going to see Feeling of Dread tap the Thundermaw Hellkite. And now we are going to see, it looks like we're going to see Pillar Flame, but Mighty Mark has a Restoration Angel.
Awesome sequence. Nothing to flash back, but that's okay. Just, again, adds more to the board.
And now we're looking at a 2-turn clock here. We see another Moreland Haunt. Mark comes across for 6, knocking Jason down to 4. And now Mark is sitting with a Feeling Dread in his hand, a Feeling Dread in the graveyard. If there's a Supreme Verdict that takes place here, Mark can make tokens with his Moreland Haunt. So it feels to me that he's almost got every angle covered right now.
This game has been excellent execution, in my opinion, by Mark.
I agree.
He didn't actually do anything particularly powerful this game, but he identified ways to maximize his resources every turn, and now, so we're going to Azorius Charm it back on top of the deck.
Even denying Jason a draw step here is a really big deal, because right now, as you said, Thundermaw Hellkite not really doing a ton. Well, it looks like we're going to see that Restoration Angel that we do know about. As you guys do see Azorius Charm on the screen, everyone's probably intimately familiar with this card by now.
Yep, so we're going to see, but this is just setting him up for Feeling of Dread.
Yep, that's exactly what it's doing, and we are going to see it flash back here.
Now Moreland Haunt token.
Moreland Haunt token maximizes all of his mana for the turn.
Yeah, every turn. Who said Herberholz was washed up?
So we do see Mark draw a card. He draws an island for the turn. Plays that. He's going to serve in. Looking to finish this one off here.
Jason would need something pretty special here. Yep.
And that's going to do it. So we have Mark Herberholz up a game here with the blue-white Geist deck that is really starting to pick up in popularity right now. Matt Nass kind of unveiled this deck at the Star City Games Invitational in December. It was a deck that we hadn't really, we were used to Blue-White Flash by Adam Prozac, and this was kind of an update or a different route with that deck, and he really took that tournament by storm. He said he loved his deck, and a lot of people as well were just like, this is a really creative and innovative take on this deck, and something new in the format.
Yeah, and, I think there's definitely this thought process once you have the Ravnica duels with the M10 duels, with the Innistrad duels of, why wouldn't I just add a third color? You know what I mean? And the reasons are, A, there is more consistency to just playing 2 colors, and B, as you saw in that game, the blue-white Geist deck can easily afford to play multiple copies of Moreland Haunt. Jason's deck can only play 1, and even that's a struggle to get in the deck.
A bit dubious.
It creates issues with how your Sulphur Falls and Cliff Drop routines come to play, whether or not you can cast some of your spells. And so the efficiency of the blue-white deck, plus all the extra copies of Moreland Haunt, is a pretty strong incentive to just stay inside of 2 colors.
So as we do go to sideboards here, you do have Jason's deck listed in front of you, blue-white mid-range deck that I'm sure, again, most people are relatively familiar with in this format. Does he have anything in particular that can help him here?
A couple copies of Supreme Verdict, a couple copies of Negate. I'm not exactly sure how highly. Obviously, Mark's got a ton of spells in this deck, but it's not really where the strength of his cards come from in the matchup. A lot of it, the spells are more glue, and the creatures are what are doing all the heavy lifting.
Sure.
So I'm not sure if you necessarily want that there. 3 copies of Is It Staticaster, probably not for this matchup, more for, you know, humans or spirits or what have you. A Detention Sphere, a Tormod's Crypt, 2 copies of Purify the Grave, which you may want, you know, find it fighting Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, especially with how Snapcaster worked that game.
Yes. A Singleton Clone, Singleton Psychic Spiral, Singleton Tameo, and 1 Curse of Echoes.
So it doesn't sound like he has a ton.
Not
really.
really.
Nothing that really really shifts the matchup.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I think some of the graveyard removal's okay. You know, because of Snapcaster Mage, Moreland Haunt, Runechainder's Pike, all that stuff.
Taking a look at Mark's side here, you're going to see 3 copies of Purify the Grave on this side. You know, obviously both of these decks do have Snapcaster Mages, so we could see Purifies coming in on both sides. You're going to find 3 copies of Night of Glory, not so much here. 2 copies of Dispel, doesn't really seem like they're too great here. 2 copies of Jace Memory Adept, a card that we saw a lot of at the Invitational, a card that does a lot of work, and it's a unique way to go about winning the game.
Yes.
I can see those coming in here. 3 copies of Supreme Verdict. I think that Mark is the aggressor, so he may not want to bring them in, but again, he is on the draw this game, so maybe it changes exactly what he wants to accomplish. And then 2 copies of Negate.
Yeah, and the 2 copies of Jace pair very well with the Supreme Verdicts, too.
Yeah.
A lot of times in these matchups, because of unsummoned Snapcaster Mage, spot removal, whatever, it's actually pretty hard for either deck to get on the board and start attacking. So in those games, Jace just, if both players are just spinning their wheels, cantripping and bouncing and removing creatures, Jace can just end the game on the spot.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a very quick clock. And so, even though Supreme Verdict isn't at its best here, I wouldn't be surprised if Mark brought some of them in because it pairs so well with Jace.
It just keeps things stable,
yes,
so that Jace can't ever be under any pressure, and it can just do that mill 10 and just take care of the game that way.
Yeah, and Jace in these blue mirrors, I mean, it's over real fast. It does not take very long.
Yeah, it doesn't take long at all. And, you know, what we might see, and I know that's what we saw in a match at the Invitational, again, as we keep bringing that up, when Jerry Thompson was playing against Todd Anderson, we saw Thought Scourers just going towards the opponent right away.
Yeah.
You know, not targeting themselves because the library count is actually relevant.
Yes.
So you just start dinging your opponent, and it makes Jace's work just that much easier. Maybe it'll only take 2 activations instead of 3. Something like that, which is crucial in these you know, the games that do kind of draw out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, in the world, I mean, I saw some of that. In the world where there's still Runechainder's Pike and Snapcaster Mage in your own deck and the opponent's deck, it's still hard for me to believe that just going turn 1 Thought Scour you is the correct play.
Sure.
But certainly some of the very good players of the Invitational were taking that line.
As we do see both players shuffling up here. A very good first game there by Mark, just really demonstrating some of the power of this deck, the Blue-White Geist deck. You know, when I first saw this deck, and you know, I talked to Matt before the tournament, before the SCG Invitational, you know, I was just a little bit surprised to see 4 copies of Unsummon, you know, 2 copies of Feeling of Dread, cards that you don't really, you know, you see Unsummon in some varying numbers. You know, you're just maybe seeing 1 or 2 copies, but 4 was just kind of something that was just like, wow, that's really surprising. But you see the way that this deck plays and the way that this deck uses Unsummon, it seems necessary to have
very
that
good.
many.
Yeah, very good against the green decks. Very good at facilitating your Geist Estate draft too, which is a big deal.
So we see both players did keep their 7 cards. Jason here getting his mana online, as you brought up. Of course, when you're playing 3 colors, there's a bit of an opportunity cost here, but he looks like he's doing just fine and is going to lead off with a Geist of St. Traft. It's going to resolve.
Mark's going to think twice here, searching for his own Geist.
He had one the first game to take care of Jason's, and it looks like he's going to have one this game as well. So he has dodged the Geist part of the game thus far.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw that before in the old Delver decks where the Geist, whether or not you can answer the Geist, was often just a quick check on whether the game was over.
As we do see a second Geist of St. Traff here from Jason. So Jason presenting the question again to Mark of, can you take care of Geist of St. Traff? Because that's the only way that they can, this blue-white, Geist deck can take care of it. Outside of, boarding in the Supreme Verdicts that we talked about briefly, and it looks like Mark might be in a little bit of trouble here.
Well, he does have Thought Scour and Snapcaster Mage in his hand. So if Jason's hand actually doesn't have removal in it, which is asking a lot, but he might be able to answer it that way.
As we are going to see a Thought Scour there for Mark, turning over Sphinx's Revelation and Island, drawing him a mystery card. You do see 2 Azorius Charms in his hand, and he is just going to pass the turn back, so maybe it's going to be an attempt at an ambush.
And we'll see if Jason has an answer to this.
As we do see Geist of St. Traff come over with its Angel Friend. Mark attempting the Snapcaster Mage. Looks like he's going to be targeting the Thought Scour, but we're going to see a Searing Spear take care of it.
All right.
Now we are going to see that Thought Scour flashback from Mark. It's going to turn over a Dissipate and a land. Searing Spear takes care of that. And Mark does draw a card, so in for 6.
Yeah, but all the card advantage and all the tempo Mark generates is not going to matter anything as long as Geist of St. Traff is unchecked. So
absolutely. Definitely the card that swings this matchup back and forth. It's almost so powerful that, your point of bringing in Supreme Verdict to kind of protect Jace, you're bringing in Supreme Verdict just to trade 1 for 1 with Geist of St. Traff, it almost feels like. As we do see Geist and the Angel token come across for 6 more. Doesn't take long, as we know, to get the games over with Geist of St. Traff. Mark is currently at 8, facing down, basically a 2-turn clock, maybe a 1-turn clock with Snapcaster Mage on Searing Spear, as we do see a Spirit token here on the end step from Moorland Haunt.
And we are going to cycle an Azorius Charm, I'm assuming.
Draws himself another Snapcaster Mage, so a bit of a fight here. Mark trying to put up on another Snapcaster Mage drawn. See an Island come into play.
But Mark can't even just trade with the Geist of St. Traff at this point and feel like he's out of the water.
Yeah.
Because with Searing Spear plus Snapcaster Mage plus Thundermaw Hellkite, Jason's deck can still close out the game even if Mark stabilizes.
And this is the difference between the blue-white Geist deck and the blue-white-red mid-range deck is obviously the red you're splashing for, big splashy effects like Thundermaw Hellkite and some pinpoint removal like Searing Spear, but that Searing Spear actually gives this deck reach that the blue-white Geist deck doesn't have.
Yes. So I think Mark is probably just going to go for another defensive Snapcaster Mage here.
We'll see what he chooses to target with that. We do see a Azorius Charm in his graveyard. There's a copy of Sphinx's Revelation down there. There's also a Dissipate as well, so definitely some options there for Mark.
Mark apparently needs all of his blue and white mana, so he has to tap his Moorland Haunt.
And we are going to see some blocking here.
Jason mulling over his options here.
We do know that in Jason's hand, he does have another Geist of St. Traff. I also see a red card there. I'm not sure if it's a Pillar of Flame or another Searing Spear. I think if it was Searing Spear, he would have taken care of the Snapcaster Mage, presumably.
Yeah. I also think he has a Revelation. Is that true? So now I think he's debating about whether...
Okay, so we are going to see a Searing Spear here after blocks.
So we'll see if this induces any sort of response from Mark. Mark has Dissipate in his hand. He would really like to trade with this Geist of St. Traff if he could.
Yeah, I think it's a really big deal at this point. And it looks like as he's tapping 3 mana, untapping it now, weighing his options.
Because there's a lot of things he could do. He could Dissipate the Searing Spear, he could Azorius Charm the Snapcaster Mage back on top of his own deck, and that's what he's going to do.
That's what he's going to do, okay. So he's going to end up taking 1 in this attack step just from the Spirit token. A little bit surprising to see the Azorius Charm on his own Snapcaster Mage. And you have a good explanation for why that would happen?
He wants to try to block again next turn.
Okay.
That's the only reason. The Snapcaster blocking might be his only real answer to Geist of St. Traff, so...
I mean, there's basically the argument of, you know, he can Azorius Charm that back to the top of his deck, or he can dissipate the Searing Spear. Which avenue is better?
Well, I think that if he can make a land drop next turn, he can go Snapcaster Azorius Charm and dissipate something. He gets the same opportunity next turn. If he dissipates there, then he loses the flashback on his whatever he targeted with Snapcaster Mage. Like, that's just gone forever. And if Jason has a negate or something like that, it's a real disaster.
Okay. As we are in Jason's attack step, we are going to see Snapcaster Mage here from Mark. It is going to target Azorius Charm, and we'll see exactly what he's crafting here.
I mean, I assume we're going to be trying to Azorius Charm the 4/4 and trade with the Geist here, would be my assumption, but
we do see a block here. We do know Azorius Charm does have flashback, so you know we can see many different versions of Azorius Charm here. We're going to see Jason pulling an Azorius Charm forward of his own, targeting Mark's Snapcaster Mage to keep his Geist Saint Trapped alive.
Are you sure he targeted that, not his own Geist?
It looks like he's fingered that way towards because he has an additional copy of Geist Saint Trapped in his hand. I'm relatively sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And now you see Mark, it's time to fight over this particular card with a Dissipate, taking care of that Azorius Charm.
And now you're going to see flashback on the Angel.
Yep. So Mark, again, maximizing all of his mana for this turn, just as he did last turn.
Yes. Which I think is why it was important for him to not dissipate last turn.
Sure.
So he would be able to flashback and get the access to the same play this turn.
And now we do see that backup Geist Saint Trapped, Jason's third of the game. Mark's sitting at 6 life, at least an island in his hand, to go a couple of lands there. Actually, you see a Hallowed Fountain and two copies of Island. Does play one of them, and that last card is a Snapcaster Mage. So Mark, you know, life total is relatively low right now.
Yep.
He's got some fighting he needs to do. He's been on the back foot this entire game. And this is a deck that, you know, it's very good when it's ahead. It has a little bit of difficulty catching back up.
Yes.
So we'll see if he's going to be able to fight through all of these guys that he's had to deal with here from Jason.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised this turn if his line was actually to Snapcaster on Revelation, because it's very challenging at this point for him to beat any sort of hand from Jason. But if Jason has nothing, he's actually got a shot.
Sure. As you are going to see a mainstay Snapcaster Mage here. And
yes,
you're predicting pretty well here. We're going to see a Sphinx's Revelation 4/3. Going to move Mark up to 9. Going to net him 3 more cards.
Yeah, I like this play from Mark. He's exposing himself to some things, obviously, but it's going to be very challenging for him to beat those things anyway.
Sure.
This actually gives him a shot to win if Jason's hand isn't very good.
So Jason does have a Steam Vents there. And he is going to play that untap, knock himself down to 18.
I assume this is representing some rebel.
We are going to see a Pillar of Flame take care of Snapcaster Mage. So the pathway is clear for Geist to come across here. Doesn't look to be a lethal attack just yet, but we are going to see Mark move down to 2.
And we know the last card in Jason's hand is Sphinx's Revelation.
Okay.
So Mark he needs Supreme Verdict. That's where this all starts, basically. I guess his own Geist gets him above water, but he's going to need a lot of stuff to be able to both stop that Revelation and... Oh, Jason's not messing around. He's just going to cast it for 3.
Yeah, I think I like this.
Yeah,
honestly.
I do too.
Yeah, just get this part over with. You know, don't open this up to who knows what kind of counters. Well, even like 1 mana Dispel. You just want to have this taken care of.
Yeah.
So you see Mark is going to draw a card here. He does draw an Island. Mark is going to start the turn with an Augur of Bolas. You see an Azorius Charm and unsummon, and the card he's moving forward is Sphinx's Revelation. Again, just trying to keep his head above water. Places land for the turn. Geist to take care of Geist. And you do see Mark does have access to a Moreland Hawk token right now as well. We see a negate drawn here from Jason.
So can Jason finish it off? Obviously there's a lot of cards in his deck here that can end this.
Yes. Snapcaster Mage very live, a lot of burn spells as we're going to see. Moorland Haunt's spirits trade with each other.
Oh, and nothing.
We see it just a pass back. Okay.
Mark might be turning the corner here.
Another Sphinx's Revelation drawn for Mark. We do know Mark does have a Hallowed Fountain in hand, along with 2 Revelations, and you guys do see that Rune Chanter's Pike to the front as well.
And Jason went negate in hand, so he can fight over one of these Revelations.
As you see Mark move his mana over there, leaving the Moorland Haunt open. Looks like we're going to see an attempt at a Revelation for 4 here, but he's going to start with an Augur Bolus attack. Which is a good attack, of course.
Yep.
Leaves himself open to Snapcaster Mage, but he wasn't beating Snapcaster Mage anyway. And now we do see that Sphinx's Revelation here, 4/4. Seems like a good target for that negate.
I would imagine we are negating here.
Yes.
If not now, if not this, then what?
And there is the negate there from Jason.
So Jason untaps.
He makes a Moorland Haunt token. Mark has access to his Moorland Haunt as well. So we can see another Moorland Haunt trade here. As we do, Mark's shields are completely down.
Yeah, Jason picked up a Dissipate that turn, I believe, which is fine for him to have these counters, but you know, Mark has so many awesome cards in his hand that he's going to be able to induce all of these.
Yep.
The Rune Chanter's Pike's going to need to be countered. The Revelation's going to need to be countered. He has a lot of stuff that's worthy of being countered here. So Jason would actually ideally like to find something other than permission, trying to end this game quickly.
Yep. As we do see Rune Chanter's Pike here now, it looks like we're gonna see another negate. Okay. As we do see Mark come across here for 1. Hallowed Fountain in. Mark shows I have 2 cards left.
He has a hand of Revelation and Thought Scour.
And Jason gonna make a token. Mark looking to pounce, I think. Not yet. Okay.
Yeah,
holding steady.
With 3 mana, with Jason still having 3 mana up, if he had a counter spell for the Revelation in his hand, he still has it.
Sure.
It doesn't.
So we're going to see Moorland Haunt, the Spirit token, come across again. The same song and dance.
All right, Mark's just going to take that hit. The difference between going to 2 and 1 doesn't actually change anything here.
Pillar of Flame and Searing Spear are still both lethal.
And if his Revelation resolves here, it would get him to 6, which would mean that Thundermaw Hellkite's no longer lethal, so he can afford to take that shot. The only thing it changes is if Jason can generate a second Moorland Haunt token, then things become a little bit hairier. But I'm willing to assume that because Mark was willing to take that shot, that Jason's out of a graveyard.
So here's the question: do you lead here with Sphinx's Revelation or Thought Scour?
Revelation.
Revelation. Okay, just go for it. We are going to see that Dissipate that you talked about. Take care of that. Mark draws his card. He draws an island, so it's going to be time to fire off this Thought Scour. He's going to need some help. See a Thought Scour targeting himself. Interesting. Jason pausing here.
I think Jason's hand's just a land.
Okay. Unsummon. And a Plains turned over. Mark tapping mana. Mark going to cast Think Twice. Mark draws Hallowed Fountain. In for 1. Mark's sitting on just 2 lands right now.
Yep. Both Jason and Mark on empty.
Jason, nothing in the graveyard to make another Moorland Haunt token. Mark able to make one. He does get the trade.
Does Jason have Staticaster in his hand? Is that his last card? No, he would have blocked by now, I guess. I think.
And Mark plays a second Moorland Haunt. As we do see Jason draw a card here. Mountain. We see mana being tapped here. Finally for Jason, a spell. 5 mana, I think that means. Okay, we're going to see Tamiyo. I thought maybe Thundermaw Hellkite, but we're going to see Tamiyo tap down the Augur of Bolus. Moving up. So another angle of attack here from Jason. Mark draws his card. Mark draws Geist of Saint Trap. Big draw for Mark.
Yeah, huge.
Looking to turn things back in his favor. We know that he does have those 2 Moorland Haunts. Not sure about the number of creatures in Mark's graveyard right now, so we'll get confirmation on that. But we know that Jason, one life to go.
Yep. And a fair amount of time to find it too. Whatever, the Searing Spear or Pillar or Snapcaster Mage or whatever.
So you see Jason just analyzing a few things very quickly. And that card is Static Caster's hand. Yes, it is. No, Counterflux.
Oh, Counterflux. Sorry. That explains it.
So Jason draws his card.
Contemplating keeping the Augur down or drawing a card here, I guess. He's going to draw.
He is going to draw. He's going to draw a blue card is a mystery. It's not going to be a mystery much longer. Curse of Echoes. And that is a card, as Mark is reading, we are definitely going to bring up for you guys. It is a nice one-of bullet that you typically see in blue decks nowadays. Punishment for casting instants and sorceries. So we're going to see an Augur Bolas here from Mark.
It's basically a hive mind.
It's a
one-sided hive mind.
So we're going to see Augur Bolas get into Tamiyo. It's going to bring him down to 2 counters. So Mark, if he does draw another Sphinx's Revelation or something like that, it's going to be punished now because of the curse. And this is a card that Mark is unable to get off of the table.
Yep.
So now we're going to see Jason Searing Spear, and that's going to do it.
That's game. Yep.
So we're going to move on to game 3 here. You guys do see the clock. We got about 14 minutes left here for this third game. These games do get a little bit grindy. But that should be probably enough time for these players to finish up. Good game there.
Yeah, that was
two good ones so far.
Yeah, Mark definitely gave himself the best chance to. He just needed one of those big spells to resolve there. Jason picked up a lot of counter spells there in the mid game while no other player was really doing anything. Yep. Now, in fairness, if they weren't counter spells, they would have been spells that probably would have just killed Mark.
Yeah.
But Mark just needed one of those big revelations or that Rune Chanter's Spike to resolve. He would have had a shot, but Jason was able to fend off everything that Mark did there with his negates and his counterflux and his dissipates, and Jason was finally able to land one big spell, and that was enough to take it home.
And if you're in this matchup, if you're Jason, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, I would hope I win the game where I draw 3 Geist of Saint Traps and what is essentially a mirror, especially when he's on the play. It is the most important card in this matchup, and Jason having the multiple copies. I think the biggest one being the second one after Mark took care of the first one really is what overall brought the game home for him.
Yeah, Mark had to use his resources there in turns 5, 6, 7 very inefficiently to try to mitigate Geist of Saint Trap because he couldn't afford to take all those hits. It got him into burn range or range where the Moorland Haunt tokens started really mattering, and so Mark had to really just fire off Snapcaster Mages at non-opportune moments, and Jason was able to efficiently use his Searing Spears, which aren't very easy to use in the matchup otherwise. That Geist of Saint Trap really warped the way that Mark had to play the matchup, and Jason was able to take the game, very largely on the back of that card.
As we do see both players shuffled up very quickly, as they do note that time is of the essence here. Mark on the play for game 3 here, as we are going to see him keep, Jason keeps, we are underway. We're going to see a Thought Scour right away here from Mark, targeting himself. Going to turn over his Azorius Charm and Snapcaster Mage and draw him a mystery card. And summon into play, Island here, and we are rocking and rolling here.
Yeah. I wonder if Mark is missing white.
Sulfur Falls here from Jason, coming to play on tap. Island. And he does look to be missing white right now, as we see Restoration Angel, unsummon. Mana being a bit of an issue right now for Mark. See if Jason can capitalize.
He has another Sulfur Falls.
You do see the Hollow Fountain in Jason's hand, but he would have, of course, probably slammed that down on a Geist if he had it. So We're kind of just a little bit of draw go right now. But Mark
Well,
missing a land
he would have
drop.
not necessarily played his Geist into Mark's 3 mana.
Sure. Wants to play around Dissipate.
Yeah.
Sure. As we do see Jason plays Hollow Fountain untapped and does say go. We're going to see a Think Twice here from Mark. Jason could take the opportunity to slide in a Restoration Angel right now, but he opts not to. Mark does draw a card, and we still are seeing him without white mana right now.
Yeah, Mark's going to have to discard here, I believe.
He does have the option of flashing back Think Twice to try to hit that land drop and kind of putting his shields down, but he is just going to discard Azorius Charm. We're going to see Restoration Angel here.
Yeah. Once you've moved to discard, it's too late.
Yep.
I've seen that trip up a ton of people.
Yeah, me too.
Once someone enters their discard step, that's your opportunity to play your cards. If you pass and in that situation Mark discards, it's too late. We've moved into your turn now.
That is the last phase of every turn. So we are going to see Mark flashback Think Twice. He's going to draw a card. He does draw a Glacial Fortress. Okay. So now we can start casting his spells. We can start playing a little bit of Magic here. As you do see 3, that might be 4 Restoration Angels in Mark's hand.
Yep.
4.
So now he's going to have to enter discard again. If Jason wants a Restoration Angel, then Mark can land his own and not have to discard.
Correct. What we do see here, we see Mark just casting it right now.
Yep.
I think the reason you see that right now too is because you'd rather see from Mark's side, if he does move, say, I'm going to attempt to discard, and Jason casts his Restoration Angel, Mark casts his, then the Restoration Angels staring at each other. And if I'm Mark, I think I'd rather not have my opponent have Restoration Angel in play. I'd rather have my first one get countered.
Sure. Especially if your hand is a million Restoration Angels,
yes.
right?
As we see a second one here from Mark now.
All right, it's in.
Jason untaps and draws. As you guys do see, the Geist of St. Traft on his board. Doesn't have the unsummons and Feeling of Dreads like Mark does to clear the way, and Searing Spear is not going to get the job done either right now, so we'll see what Jason can do to get this thing out of the way.
I mean, he has Azorius Charm plus Snapcaster Mage, so with Mark missing land drops, he can actually... Okay, all right, he's going to build his board this turn. Okay, sure, that's fine. Would have been pretty attractive for me if I'm in Jason's position to shut Mark out of a draw step there.
And charm it back to the top, make him do that again.
And then Snapcaster, Azorius Charm next turn, then maybe be able to Restoration Angel, Snapcaster, Azorius Charm at the following turn.
Sure.
You might just like lock him out of draw step.
Walking, sure.
This isn't bad for Jason either. His board's all, he's built up his board here, but if I was in Jason's position there, I would be wanting to lock Mark out of land drops as much as possible.
We do see Jason at 18, Mark at 16. Jason with the board advantage right now. He is going to send in, looks like we're going to see Mark attempt another Restoration Angel here, his third one perhaps. As we do see an unsummon in Mark's hand, we also do know there is a Dispel in his hand as well.
And this was the risk of Jason not Azorius Charming last turn. It's way less productive than it was the previous turn.
Agreed. We're going to see Snapcaster Mage here. Jason, he's going to target his Dissipate. He's going to attempt to dissipate this, and we're going to see Mark slide that Dispel to the front, take care of that. And now Mark is going to pounce.
Wow. Just an impressive turnaround from Mark here.
Yes, I mean, hitting that land drop was crucial.
Yes.
And he would not have that land if the Azorius Charm play that you spoke about had occurred from Jason. Now Mark can start playing 2 spells in one turn. You're going to see Pillar of Flame take care of one of those angels, but now we have angels staring off. As you see Mark's board now, he's beginning to stabilize now.
Getting his land drops, he has all of his colors. He can actually fire off a Revelation for 3 here if he wanted to, in fact. Probably not, because he's still got a ton of gas in his hand. Okay, he's going to go for it.
But this is why we're in the booth.
Yeah.
And he's almost Hall of Fame eligible, as we're going to see Mark cast a Sphinx Revelation here, 4-3, draw 3, move himself up to 15, basically saying, I want to ensure that I hit my land drops.
Yep.
And I feel like, I feel like I can beat what's on the board right now. I feel like I'm doing okay.
Yep.
Now, for Jason, I think right now, Thundermaw Hellkite is probably the best thing he can do. Tamiyo also a really good play this turn as well.
Yeah.
But he needs one of his haymakers right now as he draws a negate, a card that Mark saw last game along those dissipates. So while Jason's shields were down, I think taking the opportunity to resolve that Sphinx Revelation, very smart.
So here's an attack from both This attack probably represents Searing Spear, so I think Mark is correct in blocking the Snapcaster Mage.
Also representing Snapcaster Mage on the Pillar of Flame as well.
Yeah.
Also representing Pillar of Flame. So, all right, you're just going to see Restoration Angel there. Not letting the damage happen. Mark going to move back down to 12. Jason furthering his board position. Again, it is Mark's job to catch up here, but he has the cards. He just, again, as we saw in game 1, he just needs to get them out of his hand.
Yeah, he's got a lot of tools to work with, and he's got a bunch of lands in his hand now. His life total is reasonably comfortable.
So we see Augur of Bolas reveal another Dispel. The first Dispel backbreaking. This one could be just as good.
Yes. And Mark's actually is working at a different level of efficiency at this point than Jason. Like, Searing Spear is fine, but it's not... Jason's ability to use it is very board contextual. It's not guaranteed to be able to be productive every game, whereas it's almost guaranteed that Mark's going to be able to use things like Dispel, Non-Summon, and all those kind of cards productively.
As you are going to see a Restoration Angel here from Mark before blocks. Restoration Angel is going to blink Augur of Bolas. Going to resolve that trigger. Mark is going to see an Augur. What he's going to see is not spells. Cavern of Souls and a Hollow Fountain move to the bottom as well. That's just one copy of Cavern of Souls in Mark's deck. It's gone, so that's never going to come up for the rest of the game.
Yep, and Mark here moving to double block the Restoration Angel, willing to take another hit to try to, again, with so many counters in his hand, all he needs to do is manage what's on the board now. So he's willing to take another hit, maybe trade with one of his angels with a Searing Spear, whatever he can do to compress Jason's board, and then let the counter spells and more efficient card drawing take over from there.
His tempo plays like Feeling of Dread, like Unsummon, really let those start to take over.
Yes.
As you see, Mark, this is basically just a perfect example of using your life total as a resource right now.
Yeah.
As we do see Snapcaster Mage here, Pillar, Mark, you're going to see Mark cast Unsummon instead of the Dispel, saving Dispel for a better moment, which I like.
Right.
Which I like.
A great use of Unsummon here. Yep. Whenever you get your opponent to trade negate with Unsummon there, it's...
Can't be unhappy.
Yeah, like look at the boards now. Look at the cards in hand. I mean, and there's a Snapcaster Mage. I mean, Mark has just turned this around. He has to be conscious of the clock, of course.
He does. And you do see both players are playing at a much quicker pace in the first two games because, having a draw at this point in a 9-round tournament, not exactly where you want to be. As you do see, Mark has a Dispel, he has a Dissipate, he has a Negate in his hand, and he has a Snapcaster Mage as well. So he just needs, he's done a nice job of stabilizing this game. He just needs to turn things a little bit more in his favor. As we're going to see Jason tapping some mana here on the main phase.
Is this Curse, maybe?
This could be Curse, it could be Tameo, it could be... Okay, we're going to see Curse of Echoes. And this is going to get the negate out of Mark's hand. Makes a lot of sense there.
Yeah. And that's, of course, the downside of a card like Curse of Echoes in this matchup is it's really good when you're on the front foot and your opponent's the one who has to respond to your offense. It's far worse when you just had to play it on your main phase into open mana.
Yeah, and that's just your turn.
Yeah.
No effect on, not furthering his board position at all. As we are going to see an attack here from Jason with all three of his guys, both Snapcasters and a Restoration Angel. Snapcaster Mage coming in. This is a pretty darn good time to be Azorius Charming a Restoration Angel back to the top, leaving Dispel mana open. If he doesn't have to use all his mana for the turn, we're going to see some blocks here. He's not even going to risk his Restoration Angel, which I like.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have to, basically Mark's saying, I don't want to have to waste a Dispel like a Searing Spear.
And Mark has Dissipate in hand, so he can actually catch the Angel on the way back. Yep. And Revelation left over to gas back up. I mean,
we see an attack here for 4 from Mark. Mark now turning into the aggressor, shifting roles. We're going to see a Revelation here in the end step, I believe. That's going to be for 5 from Mark with that Dispel up again. Something that he could have used earlier, but chose to use Unsummon instead.
Yeah. All right. Mark has just done an excellent job of maximizing everything.
And there's the 5th card. And of course, Jason obviously saying, I can't counter it.
Right.
Because I know there's a Dispel there. And it's kind of interesting, Patrick, the little game inside the game that you play when, he reveals a Dispel and he's choosing not to use it when he has the opportunity. And if you're Jason and that's why you're just like, ugh. Yeah. How do I get this out of his hand? As we're going to see Unsummon, bounce that, 1 mana, basically acting as a 1 mana removal spell.
For 4 again.
We're seeing a Azorius Charm here. Maybe this is what he chooses to use the Dispel on finally.
I think because he has to be conscious of the clock here and he has so much action in his hand, even though, if this game was going on for another 14 turns, he'd be like, yeah, sure, Azorius Charm, my Restoration Angel, reset my Augur, whatever. given the time constraints Mark's in, I think that it's correct for him to fight over that.
As do I. As we do see, this spell Take Care of the Azorius Charm, Augur of Bolas, revealing an Azorius Charm for Mark. We know that Jason does have that Restoration Angel in his hand, but can he keep up?
Yeah, I mean, Mark's been playing 3 spells a turn.
Yeah.
And Jason's been playing 1 for a bunch of turns now.
We see a Rune Chatter's Pike drawn from Mark. Gonna make one of these crappier threats like those 2 Augur of Bolas and that Spirit into a real threat, as we're gonna see Jason fight here with Negate. Mark says that's fine. You know, I'm not gonna fight over that when I dissipate. I'd rather take care of that Restoration Angel. Thank you very much. We might just see him Azorius Charm back to the top as well. But we're gonna see him just slam Dissipate there. Take care of that. Come across for 6, knocking Jason down to 4.
And presenting lethal next turn.
That's it.
As it is. Mark Herberholz 2-1. That was a nice way to start off the day, I gotta say.
That was a good match.
Yeah.
Very, very good match to start the day with. What you saw there is you saw a player using time correctly. You saw him use his life total as a resource, get himself out of sticky situations. And I know that we're harping on Mark's play a lot because he's more known to the 2 players, but it's not like Jason really did anything wrong.
Yeah, I mean, the one turning point of that match where there could have been a different play was whether or not he wants to Azorius Charm that Restoration Angel, because the 5th land that Mark drew turned on everything.
Yeah.
That was, now next turn it's Restoration Angel unsummoned, and Jason had to use a lot of his resources to just not get ruined in combat that turn. And after that, you know, Mark started hitting his land drops, he started deploying his cards more efficiently, he started dispelling, you know, more expensive cards out of Jason's hand, and then, you know, once his mana was unlocked there, Mark was able to pretty quickly turn the game around.
Yeah, and then, you know, you start being able to do the things that make blue-white decks so popular.